well, you know her from a lot of different roles, but she's a member of the Republican Central Committee. So please welcome Wendy.
Thank you. Thank you.
And joining us is renowned immigration attorney, Mark Santa Maria. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Mark, let's have you. You're an immigration attorney, and I know you've had a busy year because of that. Give us a quick overview in terms of the policy that is supposedly in place regarding mass deportations, and then tell us how you see it being applied and whether it's a realistic kind of, if it's really realistic to kind of actually find common ground with those two.
Sure, and first of all, thank you so much for having me, and it's such a privilege and honor to be here and to speak based on a boots on the ground perspective. And before I get into the details, because that's a very valid question, especially the past year, I just want to give some perspective on me. I practice here in San Francisco. My office is just a few blocks walking distance, and I'm also an ESL teacher at City College of San Francisco, and I taught some naturalization classes here at the Chinatown campus. It's been such a pleasure to do that. So it's right in my neighborhood, quote unquote, so to speak. And so it's such a pleasure to be here, and I consider it such a blessing. So as for what's been going on with mass deportations, that's the goal. That's the goal. But at their stated goal, not necessarily mass deportation, that's what they want kind of thing, but it's on record that this administration would prefer to have a certain amount of people deported. And first of all, I do want to state that my personal belief is, yeah, I also agree, people should come here the right way, quote unquote, like my parents did from the Philippines. My mom came here on a work visa in the 60s, and I was born here in San Francisco, and I'm very grateful for that blessing. And yeah, I understand that people want people to come here the right way, as do I. Okay, and it's just that life circumstances change things and have push factors, and that's just, I want us to understand the human side of things, because there are people here living in the shadows, serving us our food, cleaning our hotel bathrooms, and making our lives so much easier thanks to them. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful to them, because not all of them are consciously trying to break the law and come here illegally, quote unquote. And so that's my basic foundation of what I'm trying to get at to you all. Because we can get into the statistics, but I'm trying to share with you the real lives of people. And they're amazing people. The people I taught at Chinatown City College, they have amazing stories. They spent years trying to become citizens. Some as refugees, some family petition, some through work, but it was a journey. It wasn't as easy as it was for my mom. And she had a difficult time coming here too. We live in Daly City, and prior to her coming here in the late 60s, it was illegal for someone of color to buy a house in Daly City. That was not that long ago. And so those are some things for us to be aware of, because we have to know the background of everything going on. And that's my humble opinion, because yes, there are forces to want to make everyone come here the right way, and if you're not here, it's a very unforgiving system, especially the past year. But again, it's about the people, you know, and so I do want to say that it's not about one side versus the other, because I have many Republican family members, Republican friends that I get along with so well, you know. So I hope today becomes more of a how can we solve the problem together, right? So sorry, that was a long-winded answer to your question.
No, it wasn't actually. Very detailed. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for that overview. So some of your best friends are Republicans, is that what you're trying to say?
Some of my cousins, and some of, yes. So we have interesting conversations. So I'll say it like that. And I love them. I really do.
And Wendy, you know, of course, when people say Republican, sometimes they sort of lump that in as like that's the opposing view. So
Yes.
clarify for us the way you see this policy, and again, tell us sort of what you feel like is sort of the realistic sort of application of this and where we need to go from here.
Okay. So in order to find common ground, first we have to agree on the definitions on this immigration, what's happening. And so let's begin with definitions. So alien is any person not a citizen or national of the United States. An immigrant is any alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence in the United States. Illegal entry is entry in violation of that law. Importation in the immigration code is bringing aliens into the United States for unlawful or exploitation purposes. Deportation, legally called removal, is a lawful government process, not punishment or cruelty. The federal government has both the authority and responsibility to enforce these laws to maintain domestic tranquility and public safety. A nation that abandons the rule of law does not become compassionate. It becomes unstable. Deportation is necessary and doesn't mean cruel. America has already proven that immigration laws can be enforced peacefully, humanely, and effectively. More than 2 million people left the United States voluntarily, without raids, without violence, and without disrupting the communities. That's not cruelty. It is lawful order with compassion. The real threat is not enforcement. The real threat is chaos. According to DHS, more than 2 million people have entered illegally, self-deported. More than 2 million have entered illegally, self-deported. Why did they leave? Because the United States used non-cruel enforcement. A modest stipend of $1,000 to $3,000, one-way plane tickets, and the possibility of lawful return. All funded by us, the taxpayers. We're generous Americans. This avoids street confrontations, family trauma, and fear. It also saves taxpayers money. Self deportation costs a few $1,000s per person, compares to up to $18,000 per forceful removal. Long-term housing, healthcare, education, and welfare cost far more. It's estimated $150 billion annually. It's all funded by taxpayer, us. So deportation doesn't have to be cruel, and it can be compassionate and lawful. Thank you.
Okay, I don't think we're going to have too much problem of getting a debate going here. But also, too, I want to remind everybody that, you know, we're not just here to try to agree to disagree. We're trying to find common ground. We're trying to find an understanding from both sides. Because, again, there's not going to be any resolution if everybody just stays on opposite sides of the room. So, first of all, Mark, address for us a little bit what Wendy was saying. Talking about the policy and the way it's been applied. Is that something that is actually happening in, like, we sort of tend to, and I would say the media kind of focuses on the cruel deportations. Is what she's saying accurate in terms of the fact that so many are going on and they're not really being conducted that way? Or is the reality that more of it is happening that way and that what they're trying to do in terms of domestic tranquility isn't really sort of being achieved?
And thank you for the question. And it's such a hot topic, and I do want to say that Wendy had bring some valid points. You know, none of us want anyone to feed off our system for free. You know, my generation would call them freeloaders or whatever. None of us want that. None of us. And now I'm not saying that. Neither are many people from quote unquote our side. But again, we're all Americans, so we're all on the same team. And so Wendy also mentioned some some laws about immigration. And what many of my Republican friends are and family members are Christians, right? And they would often say, "This is the most humane way." And she quoted to the INA, quoting people as aliens. But I have to remind our Republican friends and Christian friends that not even the Bible calls us aliens. If that's the real source of where we get our grounding, what does it actually say of how we should treat immigrants? And so, that, if you don't mind, I'd like to quote Leviticus 19:33 to 34. When a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So when we think about these policies that we're making as a people, are we first of all calling each other humans? Are we calling each other men or women? Or are we calling each other aliens? Because the same source that many of us and many of our Republican Christian friends turn to, we are called people, sojourners, brothers, sisters. And so from that perspective, I just want to say that's the framework in which I look at my Republican friends. I look at the undocumented person, and that's how I treat everyone legally and illegal if they're here. And so that's the way I was taught to treat somebody.
Go ahead, Wendy.
So as I see your background is immigration attorney. So when a case presented in court for an immigration case, would what you say fly with the court? That is alien a definition that I quoted legally in the immigration law? With you do have a bar license, right? So is what I quoted any person any person not a citizen or national of the United States, is that a legal term in your profession as attorney?
Yes, so her question is, what is cited in the law? So there are certain sources, this CFR, Code of Federal Regulations, and the INA, which refers to people as aliens. But if I call somebody here who comes from a different country, "Hi, alien," how would you feel?
So are we a country of rule of law?
Yes, absolutely.
You're an attorney, right?
Yes.
So how much do you charge? $350? Because that's what, according to my friends, I actually have a case right here that she had hired an attorney. It's been 8 years, charging her $350 an hour. And right now, that case is still not being resolved. I can read it. This is her story.
And also, Wendy, keep this brief because
Yes,
again,
I will
the
be
focus is
brief.
much on
Yes.
individual cases.
Yes.
We can't address the
Yes.
topic
Yes.
in a
That's
general
right.
way.
So for me, talking about have compassion. Okay, a friend of mine is a U.S. citizen. She filed all proper petitions, including I-130, I-601. She has waited 8 years, still no answer. Hire attorneys, spending $30,000 to $40,000. Immigration attorneys. She did everything right as a lawful U.S. citizen. She did not cross the border illegally. She did not use taxpayers' benefits. She didn't break law. And yet today, her children are growing up fatherless in the United States. Her daughter has not lived with her father in the US since she was a baby. Her sons did not have her father when he plays basketball, not there for his birthdays, holidays. They see their father only once a year abroad, at their expenses, personal expenses, not taxpayers. This is not enforcement. This is bureaucratic paralysis. Yes, he quoted the Bible, but Bible, what does God teach us? To give voluntarily as an individual with a choice, voluntary to assist. And this, so as a personal level, this is America, we have inalienable rights to give charity voluntarily with free will. And right now, even as a taxpayer, as a citizen, by law right now, there are humane ways that we are kindly asking people who enter illegally to leave. And more than 2 million, again, I have to repeat, more than 2 million has already taken up to it and left the country. So there are humane ways that we are doing it. As a citizen, as a civic person, and also as an individual, we have the right to do that. And Bible is very clear. It's voluntarily as a personal, individual choice. Thank you.
Mark, does that individual case really represent, generally speaking, what the situation is? And also, where do you think that that kind of, what's the proper scenario to think of for the typical person facing the situations that are facing?
Yeah, Wendy brings up what's called the 601 case. So what does that mean? Well, if you do a 601 case, that means there's something that happened in the person's background. So first you do the family petition called the I-130, and then if they entered illegally or something happened, they overstayed, and so you want to get status that way, then that's when you do the 601 phase. And so something happened in this person's past where, okay, so it's not going to be as quickly as possible because that person did something and nobody's perfect. I get that. Maybe he or she overstayed.
No, she didn't. So just for the record, for this one, there's no, like I mentioned, they did not break the law. It's just that, anyway, so I just clarify that.
Okay, if that's the case, fine, but she did mention 601. If you can check that and see what that means. That's only for people who committed some sort of overstay or crime. And if so, that does add to the process. And so that elongates the process. And so that's a form of forgiveness. It's literally called a waiver of unlawful presence. And so you can check for yourself what it stands for, what it provides as a form of relief. And so those kinds of cases take a long time. And my heart goes out to people like that because that's a long, first of all, the regular process is already long. My wife and I did it the regular way too. She came here from Vietnam the legal way on a student visa, and then we had to do it ourselves. Here I'm an immigration attorney, but I still had to go with her to the green card interview, and we did it, but it took a while. It took a year or so for her papers to get processed. And so it takes time. And I'm not saying it's a messed up system. It's not a messed up system because it is a messed up system. We all agree to that. And so we all I want to fix it. That's why I got into immigration law. But I want to help individual people, right? And so that's why I'm saying, like, these are the stories, you guys. These are amazing people. And we have, there's so many stories I wish I could share with you of people fighting through things, and, but I don't want to take up too much time, so please.
And that's sort of what we were trying to talk about, which is that you can take almost any kind of individual situation. It gets very difficult to kind of apply that so broadly to this. Let me talk about this messed up situation for both of you, and that is we already are getting kind of an understanding of the policy. We're getting an understanding of the goals and things that are supposed to be accomplished by this. Now let's throw in the big X factor, Donald Trump. The application of this policy is totally influenced by the administration's attitude toward how they want to enforce it. So let's talk about that. We already understand what the goal is, what the ideal situation is. Is the Trump administration's application of this distorting the discussion that we can have? And then how do we sort of get past that so that we can find that kind of common ground?
Yes. And then we start with the common ground. What does the Trump administration want to do, generally? If you take it for their word that they really want to help prioritize America first. That sounds great, and I'm all for that. As an American, that sounds as it should. You know, born and raised in San Francisco, I'm an American, and so I love hearing these kinds of things. But the reality is, it's different. It's harder for an immigrant to just level up. It's not as easy as it is for somebody here. And in terms of the realities of what's been going on this past year, it's been tough. Because I love the Constitution. I grew up learning about these amazing cases. That's why I went into law school. And then when you hear about, so San Francisco Immigration Court is right there. And so their goal is to minimize the amount of quote unquote illegal people here. And okay, that makes total sense. But then are you doing it in a way that's efficient and that honors due process? So efficient and due process. Okay, tell me if the following matches both. Is it efficient and does it match due process, a constitutional right? San Francisco Immigration Court, a few blocks from here. This past year, they fired at least 12 to 15 judges, some of which were appointed by his administration the first term. And so, does that even make sense at all? Efficient, does it honor due process? Neither. If they really want to have the people who are here illegally be removed, okay, go to the court system. If they do not have any sense of relief, they went through the system, it just didn't work out for them. I get that. But if you're firing the people who are supposed to honor due process, how can you have an efficient system? So it just doesn't make sense. The whole year, it has been so different. For example, 2-3 years ago, I'd been in a courtroom's packed, as it should, because the judge has to hear a lot of cases, get cases moving. But then last year, there were multiple judges with decades of experience fired. And if they're supposed to hear these cases and decide whether a person can stay or not, and they're not there, how can that be efficient? And how can that honor due process?
Wendy?
Okay. So he mentioned about Trump's administration's America First. And also, it's under Trump's administration this thing happens. So apparently, there was a law called Laken-Riley's Law that was passed by Congress. So it's Congress passed this law to apprehend basically illegal immigrants. And if it's not, because it's federal government's job to enforce immigration laws, any state can sue the federal government for not following this Laken-Riley law. So if you don't know who Laken-Riley is, she was a 22-year-old college student in Georgia, brutally murdered by this illegal immigrant. So that was the law that was passed. So, and that's the thing. So since this law was passed, 17,000 criminal aliens were arrested because the Laken-Riley Act. And what is putting America first? That is prioritizing law-abiding citizens, like we're here, and also legal immigrants first. There are millions of legal immigrants in the United States who come to this country legally. And putting America first is putting those first. And just like my friends, she's putting in the very, 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 very far back of the line because due to these illegal entries. And enforcement, yes, I understand. Enforcement can feel intimidating. No resident wants chaos in their neighborhoods, especially when violent criminals are involved. But law-abiding families should never feel threatened or have to lock themselves in their homes because elected officials refuse to act. Not all cities face these problems. This proves that disorder is not inevitable, but a policy choice. And the common sense tells us one thing: criminals do not follow laws. Again, criminals, especially violent criminals, do not follow laws.
Okay, thank you both. Let's hear it
Thank you
for
so
both
much.
Mark and Wendy.
Thank you.
Especially your views on
Thank you.
this.
Thank you
Give
so
us a
much.
chance to
Thank you.
clarify these views. We're gonna have a chance for the audience to take part in a kind of your own personal inner debate regarding what you've heard. And again, I think that it's a very difficult thing because we are talking about policy versus the reality of applying that policy. And so I think that when we're talking about common ground, again, let's sort of not find ourselves in a situation where we either friendly or in an angry way agree to disagree. Let's try to see what we can do, because ultimately what everybody wants is a resolution.
That's right.
We're not going to get there if both sides just sort of stay on the opposite sides of the room. So thank you very much for participating in this debate. Thank you all for listening. And the audience discussion, Randall will be coordinating that later. But first of all, we want to just wrap this up and say thank you for listening to this.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
I'd like to thank Robert. Robert actually lives in the South Bay. He traveled up here to San Francisco to be with you this morning. Now he's traveling back to the South Bay